On this episode, we give our first impressions of Audi's all-new and all-electric e-Tron SUV. We answer a question on how to get parts for a car that's been discontinued, and we dip into Consumer Reports archives to take a look at Lee Iacocca's hits and misses. Next on Talking Cars. Hi, and welcome back to another episode. I'm Mike Quincy.
I'm John Lincove.
And I'm Jennifer Stockberger.
So we thought it'd be right to start out this episode of Talking Cars talking about an automotive icon, Lee Iacocca, who died last week at age 94. Many of you out there know that he had incredible careers, not only at Ford, but also at Chrysler. We thought it would be fun to go back and look at CR's take at the time of a handful of the cars that Mr. Iacocca had his fingerprints on. Now, we can't get to all of them, so we kind of got a handful, and we're going to, try to get the highlights. The first one, obviously, comes to mind, is the Ford Mustang. Jen Stockberger and I particularly have some
little heart going on there.
Yeah, a little experience with these cars. I used to own a 1965 GT Fastback, and Jen?
I have a 1967 convertible. It's the only cool thing in my life. Truly.
Cool that, maybe your
Jen,
kids
you work
sort of
here
like
too, so.
Oh, that's cool too. I remember.
Yeah. And you're on the podcast.
That's right. And I'm on this. True. That is cool.
So taking pages directly, actually, out of Consumer Reports magazine, what we said originally about the 1964 and a half, I suppose it was, Mustang, is we said the riding qualities of the Mustang are good. One of the most impressive features of CR's Mustang is an almost complete absence of poor fit and sloppy workmanship in a car being built at a hell for leather pace.
I had never heard the term.
Well, this was
hell for leather.
They were selling these at an incredible the rate.
Right.
The demand was high. Listen, it had the looks, it had everything going on. But on the other hand, one of the things that we said about the Ford Mustang is the Mustang coupe is very low, a little over 51 inches high, hence the seats are low. The front bucket seats are well designed, but it's questionable whether or not they will be comfortable for day-long occupancy because of their lowness. Also, probably a high watermark of Consumer Reports writing.
Yes, a lot of those old ones, very interesting. Little dry, but a lot of eloquent writing.
And actually, John Lincove authored the story that we have right now on consumerreports.org about Lee Iacocca. So yes, you're quite intimate with this piece. Now, moving on to, so Lee Iacocca didn't have, a string of hits. He also had a few misses, one of them being the Ford Pinto. And what we said in the January 1971 issue of Consumer Reports is, unlike the Vega, yes, we were comparing it to the Chevrolet Vega, unlike the Vega's front seats, the Pintos are thinly padded. The Pinto cornered easily and predictably. We judged the high-speed emergency handling good. Now, it wasn't without its criticism in Consumer Reports testing.
Right.
We said the Pinto suspension lets you feel the road, every bump, ridge, and pebble. We also said the quality of workmanship on our Pinto was shoddy, with numerous interior and exterior flaws, and the carburetor, get that, needed extensive adjustment. So that was kind of interesting and known as one of the downsides of Ford in the 1970s was it faced a lot of criticism for the safety of its fuel system design, and ultimately there was a voluntary recall of 1.5 million vehicles. Thankfully,
I find it funny, though, workmanship was really good on the hell for leather Mustang, but then fell off in the 70s on the Pinto.
And
also a car built more for price,
Right.
and built at a different era.
Yeah.
The 70s, they were building tiny little cars for fuel economy at the time.
Right.
And they're cutting costs, particularly as seen with the recall.
Well,
Exactly.
You see, how many old Mustangs do you see? A lot.
Yep. Right.
Relatively. How many old Pintos do you see?
Yeah, not too many.
None.
Yeah, plus the rust protection wasn't so good back then.
Right.
Yep.
So anyway, we've got the Mustang, we've got the Pinto. Now moving on to Lee Iacocca's career with Chrysler, is he absolutely hit it out of the park with his proposal of a minivan, which allegedly he pitched to Ford, Edsel Ford II, and was summarily rejected. So bringing the idea of the minivan to Chrysler proved to be one of the reasons the company survived. In Consumer Reports' evaluations of the Voyager minivan, we said its power steering felt a bit sluggish and vague, but it rode about as well as most passenger cars on the highway. That was the good side of the Voyager. We also noted that the heater had to work hard and long to warm the Voyager's large cabin on cold mornings.
Well,
this was sort of
cavernous space. Yeah,
this was sort of interesting because the minivan was taking over for the station wagon as like the family vehicle in that time, because we had decades of wagons.
Yeah.
Well,
it did take over for the
right.
How many wagons you see? Go back to that question. None.
Yeah, well, that was I remember driving. You would see some Plymouth Voyagers and you'd see some caravans, Dodge Caravans. Yeah. But there were tons of wagons. I mean, it was almost a game that my parents would make us play to pick out the wagons to keep us quiet while we drove from New Jersey to Ohio. And one of the things, it's a much bigger space, like you said. And they're working with some off-the-shelf parts and they're working with some created parts.
They had heating issues, minivans.
Yes.
They had noise issues because you had this big volume of resonance, if you will, with the noise swirling around in there. Yeah, minivans had their issues, but boy,
one thing that
it did become the family car.
One thing when I was writing this that I found pretty interesting is that the seats back then would fold flat.
Yeah.
Right.
So they got it right versus a lot of the weird competitors that were kind of trucks that were converted into extended vans.
You had to take them out.
You had to take them out. And you could take them out, but a flat folding seat almost set the standard from the get-go.
Yeah.
Right.
For how useful it was.
Right. And then General Motors and Ford were playing catch-up with the minivan wars during the 80s and 90s. And nowadays, GM and Ford doesn't even bother with minivans, but Chrysler is still sticking with them. So you take your hat off for that one.
Yep.
The final car that we want to talk about that really was important for Lee Iacocca and Chrysler was back in 1987. He was chiefly behind the company buying American Motors, to get the Jeep brand, which really was a genius move, because it was right on the forefront of the big SUV wave that we're still seeing today. I mean, the most popular body style going these days. So back when we tested the Jeep Grand Cherokee in November 1992, we mentioned that the Jeep handles more responsibly than other SUVs we've tested. But we also noted that the car rocks annoyingly from side to side on bumpy roads, which is still typical of a lot of SUVs these days. But what I thought was really interesting in the article that we published on the Grand Cherokee was we mentioned that our Jeep arrived with or developed 12 sample defects. Most serious was a failure of the security/power door lock system. Even after several trips to the dealer and a visit from factory engineers, the door sometimes still locked on its own when it's closed, and really that kind of typified the sort of the normal Chrysler quality control of that time.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think one of the interesting things reading through these is just how many vehicles showed up with defects, and that we did track them back then, in the sense of, and put them in our reports. And now, you're buying a first-year car, you're buying a car right off the line.
Buying a single sample.
And a single sample, right? But we clamor to get the first ones. Everyone's going to have and does have early headaches, if you will. But some of the stuff back then, again, the Mustang is the great example. Came pretty well assembled, In
64.
In 64, right. And then, in 92.
Yeah, 92, not so good. Yeah. And we tabulated them then. I still don't think they were part of the scoring, but we certainly
we talked about what we found on the vehicle that we bought for testing.
Yep.
And really, doing the research on Lee Iacocca and reading John's really nice story on it, my take was Lee Iacocca mostly. He had the right car at the right time.
And the right business decisions.
Right.
That's what I learned more from reading John's story. Not only is he iconic, like many of these cars. I mean, it would be hard-pressed for anybody, in the 80s to say another automotive executive, or even name one now, but they would know him.
Yeah, he was an industrial superstar.
Yeah.
There was
but some of the business decisions, like you say, like Jeep.
There was the Chrysler TC by Maserati. the convertible that was part of it was built in Italy and flown on planes
and probably lost money on every single one.
Yeah, not everything's some things might be a single or a ground out. Not everything's a home run.
Sure. So that's going to really wrap up our thoughts about Lee Iacocca and his influence on the auto industry, and that brings us to what we're driving this week. We decided to focus on Audi's E-Tron. This is their all-electric SUV, their first all-electric car. MSRP stickers about $75,000. Our model came in about 80 grand, so it's not cheap, but it is elegant. It has nice styling, certainly to my eye. And a number of us, well, we've all kind of driven it, and we've got some thoughts. So, Jen, what do you think so far?
First, I do want to talk about the styling. It's not always that when I take a car home or I'm out and about that people react to it. They react to this car. I'm not sure if it's the beautiful teal color we bought, but it is a beautiful looking car. And so that's the first thing. Once you're moving, that car is very, very nice to drive. I mean, all of the bed, it is quiet. It ships beautifully. It's got plenty of power. So there is some quirkiness to it, though.
You say once you're moving.
Once you're moving. So that's why I kind of separate it. There's when you're getting moving, so a couple things. The shifter is a very odd. We talk about
the gear selector,
goofy shifters, gear selectors all the time. This one, as much as it seems designed to put your hand like a handle and move that, the park button, when I tell you guys, it was like a comedy of errors in my car. My kids were laughing because I kept, where the park button is right where that shifter is.
Right.
So I would shift it and put it into park, and shift it and put it into park. And they're like, Mom, what are you doing?
I did the same thing.
I'm like, I don't know, because the park, multiple times, I looked like a goofball. Anyway, that is certainly not a good design. You literally have to not use it like it appears to be designed to make it work. Throttle is typically, with the electric cars, it's this wonderful launch. With the E-Tron, there is a delay there. And if you get on it heavy, it's fine. But if you try to tickle it off a line or think you're moving out into traffic, there's a leisure there that's a little disconcerting at times. We talked about, when we were talking about, is it to prevent some wheel spin? Because there is so much immediate power? Not sure. But
it's almost like it's feeling every ounce of the poundage because it's not a light vehicle.
It has it's more of an elegant pull away. And there are various modes. You can get into dynamic and aggressive and eco. I mean, there's a ton of But it is. It doesn't have that snap.
Yes.
And it may not be designed it may not be pitched as that. It may not be pitched as a Tesla Model S or, the Jaguar has a semi-leisurely.
Yep.
The I-Pace.
Thank you. Jaguar I-Pace has a semi-leisurely pull away as well, unless you kind of get into it. So weight maybe play a big part.
It's a heavy car, Inside, interior, screens. The screens are very nice. They have some feedback.
Right.
They're a touch screen, but icons for old women like me are big, and they have some feedback, which is really nice. So I thought it was a great car overall.
John, something to add?
Sure. I mean, styling, I think the beholder, because I believe that a lot of Audi fans, and I've owned Audis in the past. I wouldn't call myself a fan or fanboy, but I've owned a number of them. Affordable versions.
Not 80,000.
It's very slab-sided, and it's kind of with their styling of today. And I know a lot of Audi fans are kind of a little bit down on some of that stuff. That is almost, the grille, the LED lights, those are big. The lights in the back where they kind of they trail off almost like Ford Mustang does, or they move to the edge sequentially.
Animated. We call those
animated
turn signals.
Aside from that, it's a little boring. I like its conventionality.
Yeah.
I like the fact that it follows the interior of the other Audi products that are out there today, because I am not a giant touchscreen Tesla advocate. Let's just say not big on that. Dave, I know you love it.
Super producer Dave.
Yeah, so I like conventional, and it's even more conventional than the Jaguar I-Pace, which is already a more conventional model. One thing, that the liftover in the back, so you open up the hatch, it has a very high floor.
Oh, the cargo.
In the cargo area, very high floor, very deep. It's roomy enough. I've carried a ton of stuff, and I drove it for about 170 miles. I will say, in electric, it does have a lot of, you can roll on electric power, it'll regenerate. You could use the paddles behind there to actually enhance braking without using the brake pedal. Love it. But you do just keep your eye on it.
Yeah.
More so than a fuel tank.
Right.
Because again,
you
can't pop off and top it off to get home
with
the same ease as a gas powered vehicle. But I like it. I do like the vehicle. A lot of room in the back seat.
And I've said before, the more conventional it is as an electric, the more I like it too.
Right. It doesn't have styling that says I'm. It looks like an SUV. It doesn't look like an electric SUV.
Yep.
I think to me this is an SUV, so it implies a family car.
Yep.
To me, family car implies you're going on vacation. You're going to have people and stuff and go places with it. And we have a first drive on consumerreports.org about it where we say that it has about a 204-mile range, and that is not a good road trip car. I'm sorry, and all the EV lovers out there, I'm sorry, please forgive me. I think it's the nicest EV I've ever driven. I like it way more than any of the Teslas we've driven. But for $80,000, I mean, it made me stop. It's like, $80,000? And I'm getting 200 miles of driving? It made me sit back and like, what if I had $80,000 spent on a car?
What would I buy instead?
What would I buy? I thought I would get a top-shelf Toyota RAV4 hybrid, which has done very well in Consumer Reports testing, excellent fuel economy, and I'd have enough money left over to buy a Miata with some change left over. So I mean, I'm not anti-EV, but for me, an $80,000 electric vehicle that sort of implies it's a family car, and you really can't go long distances in it is, I don't know.
It depends. It may be that the market for this doesn't take family road trips. They may fly. Well, they may not, but
it's a family car.
It's a family car, but it certainly makes electric cars today still make a case, particularly $80,000 ones, for a second car. Now there are a lot of people out there, and there's stories online about people, they own a Chevy Bolt or they own a Leaf, and that's their only car, and they still run into those headaches of, my gosh, I got to stop and charge it. And it certainly is a case today, depending on what you want out of an electric car.
I could certainly, as a mom, see it for a pickup drop
around town, sure.
Family car, just a very different, that everyday family car. I can see that working.
Mom hauler, not family truckster.
Correct.
Correct. The EV discussion will go on
it will.
on and
There's
on
more
as technology evolves. So, I mean, all things considered with this new Audi, how do you think it's going to compare with the I-Pace or the Teslas?
I think the Audi doesn't have the compromised cabin. It doesn't have the bizarre controls. We'll see what the real world range is. There's a lot of talk about it might be a little underestimated as far as the official numbers. So we'll see what range kind of things we get. Tesla's a little different story. I don't know if it's going to actually conquer any Tesla people. Tesla owners seem to be very into the world.
Well, Tesla's very trendy. Is that? I don't
it's a lifestyle.
Say that
it's a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle, and I think
it's a status symbol,
loyalty.
I think.
Do I think it's going to give Tesla shoppers a run for their money? Oh yeah, and I think there's a confidence to be had from a mainstream manufacturer building this car, one with a ton of history, good quality, and I think there might be some confidence in the E-Tron that maybe you don't have in the Teslas.
It will remain to be seen on the reliability, I think. But certainly, if you're looking SUV to SUV, the Model X was a science experiment. Even Elon Musk said something to the effect of it was a child's dream car, with the doors, and it was a little overreach maybe. Compared to the one we had, which had the captain's chairs and such, E-Tron certainly more useful than the Model X.
Correct. Right. So yes, I do think it's going to be a challenger.
Well, check back with us. We'll have more on the E-Tron as we wrap up our testing. And that brings us to the next section of Talking Cars, which is taking your questions, which we love. Keep sending them, video questions, text questions, to TalkingCars@iCloud.com. That's TalkingCars@iCloud.com. The first question we have is a video question. This is Max from New York that is interested in parts and availability of his Chrysler 300, because eventually it will be discontinued.
Hi, this is Max from Long Island, New York, and Korea, Chrysler. They may get rid of the Chrysler 300. I love the ride. It's a nice, safe vehicle. No mechanical issues. It's reliable with me. So I want to keep the car. What should I have in mind if they do discontinue the car? Is it going to be like about 3 or 5 years down the road that I'm going to have issues with parts and things like that as the car gets older? Your thoughts of what an owner should have in mind when they keep a car that is discontinued. Thank you.
So, John, what advice do you have for Max?
In research and talking to Mel Yu, our automotive analyst, there's not really any law that mandates that manufacturers have to keep parts. There's a lot of rumor about that. But if you just think the carrying costs for a manufacturer, as well as the warehouse space and the production costs of keeping parts available for 10 years or 7 years, as people think, who knows if these parts are even going to be used? So then what are they going to do? Chuck them? What are they going to have? There will be parts available. There are going to be Chrysler 300s that are under warranty. So there will be need parts for there. There will be CPO, certified pre-owned ones, that will have an even longer life, particularly than the 3-year warranty generally on a new car part. There will be aftermarket parts, certainly. It's a car that's sold in big numbers, and they put a lot of them in rental fleets.
It's
there will
been
be
around
parts
a long
available.
time.
Yeah.
It's not like maybe as precarious as you bought the last Saab or something.
Well, that's
like
what
that.
I was going to say. It's not like Chrysler is discontinuing.
Right.
There's still Chrysler dealers. There's still Chrysler service. You'll be able to go to their service, and they will, I think, have some inventory. And Max is having a great run with his 300. Our reliability, so it wasn't that great for everybody in all years. So he didn't say a year, but
did pretty well in our testing too.
Yeah.
Next up is Ethan from Missouri, who has a question about headlights. He writes, "Hi, Talking Cars. I'm a big fan of the show and never miss an episode. I was wondering about vehicle headlights. Many vehicles have headlights that have a low rating from Consumer Reports and a poor or marginal rating from the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety. Why aren't headlights more heavily regulated? People spend lots of time driving at night, and they should work well enough for us to be safe." So, Ethan, you are in such luck because our resident headlight expert, Jennifer Stockberger, is right here.
Thank you.
Jennifer, take it away.
All right, so Ethan, first, thanks for the kind words, but the truth is they are regulated, just like there are federal motor vehicle safety standards for a variety of things, from braking to child seats to everything. There is one for lighting. And they say that they're based on test points, not actually performance on the vehicle, but there must be a certain amount of light in these areas to see down the road, to see signs, and there can only be a maximum amount of light in certain glare areas. So the truth is they are. But you're right. Both ourselves and IHS have found many sets of headlights that are not adequate. And by that I mean from regular highway speeds, and we have some unique information that we have braking distances for you to see, react, and then brake for something ahead of you in the road from about 60 miles per hour.
At night.
At night. Now, and again, I'm going to get to that in a minute, is about 300 feet. Now, keep in mind, that's all ideal conditions. We test headlights in clear nights, no moon. We test braking on dry roads. So any fog, rain, snow just exacerbates that difference. Anyway, many headlights, regardless of the technology, halogen, high-intensity discharge, HID, which are waning, and now the influx of light-emitting diode LED headlights. There are good and bad of all those technologies. The HID, the LEDs, super bright white light. They're actually higher on the color temperature spectrum. Very wide light, more side lighting to the side of the road. But they don't always go straight ahead down the road where you need it most. That's the direction you're traveling in. And that's what the IHS and ourselves are finding in our testing. We have had a number of LED equipped, even mainstream cars, Corollas, for example, with LED lights that aren't meeting that right lane 300-foot type of distance to allow us to give them a good score. So
a question.
Yeah.
Are those high beams as well, or low beams, or
low
which?
beam, sorry.
Okay.
And that's a great, that's low beam distance. The bulk of our scoring is based on low beam distance. That's what you're driving on most of the time. That's where they have to balance glare and performance. And the data says that most drivers do not opt for high beam as often as they could or should.
Well, what's interesting is that you write up the section of our technical report and the headlights, and you say, for some cars, you're like, with this particular car, drivers should put the high beams on as soon as possible.
Right.
Because the high beams are really pretty good, but the low beams are awful. But I mean, you mentioned the different types of technologies that are out there. So John, there are times that people can opt up to a higher grade headlight almost as an option with the car they're buying.
Yep.
But just because you're getting that top light doesn't necessarily mean you're getting better performance.
Well, right. I'm working on a headlight story with a lot of input from Jen, but also outside sources. And some of the discussion is that it depends on the budget, first of all, of the manufacturer. If they want if they want LEDs, but the budget isn't there, then they'll have a couple LEDs, 1 or 2 or 3.
Right.
And that may equal or even be worse performance than a halogen. And if they want to spend more money, they can have 5 or 6 LEDs and it'll exceed the performance. It really depends on the budget, depends on styling. A lot of them are used more, there's styling. Everyone sees the running lights and the curves and the thing that looks like a hammer from Volvo and all these really cool things.
Thor's hammer.
Thor's hammer, you know, the name. But at the end of the day, let's use a cliche, it's style over, you know, form over function type of situation. If you're looking at a car, first of all, test drive it at night.
Yes.
Secondly,
That's
test
really
drive
good.
the version you want to buy. You know, if you're looking to buy the mid-level version that comes with halogens, don't get upsold into test driving a LED equipped or whatever, model and walk around it and look at it like that. And also, I think one of the big things, and Jen's talked about this, and it's going to be in the story, the automatic high beam function, which may be a little more on a luxury model, but it's definitely on some mainstreams as well, where you put it into auto, and as soon as you come into a darker area, it'll drop, it'll open up the high beam or it'll activate the high beam. So you don't have to worry about it for either blinding people or forgetting. And I think that's the technology you would rather invest in
I was going to say,
than shiny LEDs.
I've become very accustomed to this, so you almost notice it when you're driving a test car that doesn't have auto high beam.
Particularly an expensive one.
Yes, exactly.
So.
And there's one other technology that he talked about, regulation, Ethan, that they've just put out, proposed rulemaking or quick comment that says this adaptive driving beam technology. And essentially with LEDs, this leaves your high beams on all the time and then selectively shuts off LEDs to shield an oncoming driver or a follow driver. And they're allowing US regulations, which currently don't allow them. The idea is, should we let them be in the United States? And that'll be interesting. They're in Europe now.
Yeah.
This is so awesome.
So,
So good that we have people at Consumer Reports that are studying this. So Jen, obviously staying on top of this technology. Excellent question. We love talking about headlights, and which brings us actually to our last question. Unfortunately, we've got to wrap this up. So Kevin from California has a question about luxury compact SUVs for seniors. Kevin writes, "Hey CR, love the show. I have a question regarding senior-specific cars. My grandparents are looking for a luxury compact SUV with all the bells and whistles. They've looked at the Lexus UX and NX, but they don't have advanced safety features like forward collision warning and automatic emergency braking, which are a must for them. Any suggestion for them? John, please help Kevin out, because I know exactly what you're going to say."
Well, they do have those features.
Exactly.
They do have them standard, actually. Lexus puts them in packages, a named package. I mean, it's standard, but they gang them up on the window sticker or something under a certain name. Possibly that was a discussion with the dealer who assumed you knew that.
Right.
Assumed that his grandparents knew that. But the UX and the NX do come with those safety features standard. Now, I'm not sure if he's talking about new or used, but they're standard right there. So if it's a used car, maybe the dealer couldn't explain it as well.
Right.
So do you have a pick for them? Yeah. What do you think? What do you think Kevin should suggest?
Well, goodness. I mean, the UX is is more like a hatchback. If you park it next to a compact SUV, you could see the difference. That it almost has a Mazda 3 hatchback look. Just it's been given 3 inches of height. I'm not particular either because of their controls. The UX controls may be a little better because it has a little pod on the side that you can adjust some audio features with. I would possibly even go with a new Honda CR-V. Okay. You would have to get
get the upscale.
I would get an EX or above. But of those two, the UX probably is a little easier to live with. It's not as cramped. I mean, it's small in the front. It's small in the front. It's tiny in the back. But if there are only 2 people, it's easy to get in and out of. But I think I'd defer to Jen, not by the age you talked about, but because of some of the lists you compile for us for consumerreports.org.
Right. So I think 2 things. One, compact SUV for senior drivers is a great pick. It's got easy get in and out, that seat height, etc., be it luxury or not. So that's a great pick. 2, one of the features, certainly our surveys of advanced driving assist systems, that seniors like is blind spot warning. That is not always coupled with the AEB, even on Toyota Lexus vehicles.
Right.
So that may
it's optional.
be what Kevin's talking about. I'm not a fan of that subcompact entry level. UX sized, I think there's too much compromise for the money. So stay in that compact category. My pick is really the Audi Q5. A little more comfort in looking, yes, the NX would have better reliability, but if you look at the counter, the owner satisfaction isn't great for the NX.
Yeah.
Conversely, the Audi Q5 has average reliability, but its owner satisfaction is better. I think it's a roomier, more comfortable car. It does come standard forward collision warning, automatic emergency braking, but you do have to up to the Premium Plus to get what Audi calls their side assist, which is the blind spot warning. We've heard, certainly anecdotally from senior drivers, that many of them have lost that ability to kind of turn their head and look over their shoulder to merge or enter traffic. And so blind spot warning, super popular. So get the Premium Plus. Q5 would be my pick for Kevin's family. Right. So.
Well, I'm kind of going the way with that John went. I'm going for not a luxury brand. I'm going back to the Toyota RAV4 hybrid. The limited model is very nice. You can get leather seats, all the bells and whistles. Toyota Safety Sense is standard. So that is really kind of fulfills that. I think it's easy to live with, easy to get in and out of, good visibility, and excellent reliability, as well as fuel economy.
Well, so, I did the same thing. I wrote down Mazda CX-5 Grand Touring with standard blind spot warning. You know, if you want to get a loaded non-luxury brand, we've said that many times before. Yeah, great option.
You know, thinking it through, I would go with that one. I mean, I would maybe go with the top line CR-V, but the CX-5 is a near luxury vehicle for a better price. Sure. Particularly like your point about the UX and such is that all of these small luxuries built with a nameplate at price is a very
it's a compromise.
It's like the triangle, you know,
too much
efficient, cheap, quick. You know, you can only get two of them. You know, you're not getting luxury price and and accommodation.
Right.
Get speed or accuracy.
Right.
Yes.
Anyway,
or money. That was the other piece of that triangle. Yeah.
Great questions. Keep them coming. TalkingCars@iCloud.com. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. As always, check the show notes for all the information on the vehicles and topics that we talked about. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week.